It is a terrible thing to be vague. The more vague an allegation is, the more inextricable the gossip that ensues from it. The more impossible it is for the person who stands accused to ever clear their name. I would rather be accused of a specific crime than something less serious, but that was more vague. It was with pointed vagueness that Milo Yiannopoulos, who began this year over $2 million in debt, it was with the utmost vagueness that he decided to take Lauren Southern's reputation and drag it through the mud. I quote, "We approached 4 of the men she had been linked to romantically, each of them a prominent right-wing media figure in a position to help Southern succeed professionally. All 4 begged not to be named in this story." Period, close quote. What does it mean to be linked to someone romantically? It can mean almost anything, can't it? It could mean that this is someone she fell in love with, that she went and met their parents, that they proposed marriage, that they were formally arranging the wedding day. That could be linked romantically. It could be that it's someone she went out to coffee with just once or twice. In this context, it could be a coworker who she sometimes ate lunch with or went out to coffee with, and other people at the office perceived them as linked romantically, but really there was never anything there. It could be someone she went out on a dinner date with once, never kissed them, never slept with them. To be linked romantically to someone, and to be linked romantically by an accuser in this case, it's painfully vague. And what's the span of time here? The span of time in which she was so scandalously, romantically linked to 4 different men. It is, in fact, 5 years, isn't it? The article just chooses not to disclose that. So between 2014 and 2019, she was linked to 4 different men. There are so many legitimate reasons to criticize Lauren Southern, but this is not one of them. We tend to think about new technology in terms of the services the technology offers, in terms of the advantages, in terms of the way it'll save you time. You might think of new technology in terms of the type of entertainment it brings into your life, so on and so forth. People tend not to think of technology as something that creates responsibility. But with new technology in the 21st century, we have new responsibilities. And we need to have new legislation that will allow people to challenge false allegations about them, that will allow people, ultimately, one way or another, to clear their names. We don't think about technology in terms of vulnerability or fragility. But the internet has, in fact, made all of us quite a bit more vulnerable, quite a bit more fragile. Gossip is now an unbelievably powerful force on planet Earth in a way that it never was before. When I look back at history and I look forward to the future, there are kind of 2 different paths this can take. We could go back to the old pattern from the 18th century, which was that any insult, any indignity, any challenge to a person's honor or reputation could be answered by challenging someone to a duel. That was how European society existed for many, many centuries. And certainly, insinuations of this kind about a person's sex life, that would have been a completely typical reason for 2 men to fight each other to the death in a duel, whether by sword or by spear, or in later centuries with, muskets, pistols, and so on. Dueling was culturally and legally the limit imposed on gossip in pre-modern Europe. And in fact, you can define the beginning of the modern era as the end of the legal right to dueling. In France, it really lines up perfectly that it's exactly when the French government puts their foot down to end dueling. And when the aristocracy stands up to try to defend that right, they say, well, in what sense are we aristocrats if we can't fight each other to the death with swords? That was taken very seriously by the aristocrats. The end of dueling was itself the end of the era of aristocracy and began the era that we all live in now, the era in which we have the precious illusion that none of us are aristocrats, that all men are equal. That's one path. The future could look more like the past and go back to people defending their honor with tooth and fang, so to speak. And the other path is going to be legislating some kind of mechanism so that people all over the world, most of them are not famous like Lauren Southern, most of them don't have access to lawyers, they don't have money, they don't have resources, they may not even have the level of literacy to challenge this kind of smear campaign, so that people really have some way to seek redress. And in most cases, that's going to have to start with disambiguating what exactly the allegations are and then proving them to be false. What happened to Lauren Southern can happen to you and you and you. It can happen to you, and it can happen to your daughter and your sister and your mother. It really can. This is not something that only happens to famous people. It's something that's happened to me, and it's something that's happened to me repeatedly. And it happened to me even before I started this YouTube channel. So I'm still not famous now, but I was really nobody back in the day when the first serious defamation campaign against me started on the internet. I was just a guy who had a blog in text format. But I got to see how people who are really motivated to try to destroy your name and drag your reputation through the mud, just how far they can go behind a keyboard. It's easy to laugh at someone like Lauren Southern. It's easy to see a story of this kind as nothing but, entertainment for the masses. But we, the masses, have to learn to find entertainment in something different from and something better than destroying one another. Something better than dragging each other down.